All right, Harold, we're about a minute and a half out, so momentarily I'll just start us off with a quick intro and we'll be ready to go.
Okay, sounds good.
And welcome back, everyone, to Money Show's virtual Expo Oil, Gas, and Renewables Boot Camp. We are pleased to welcome Harold Morris, who's a senior product coach for Leaderboard and Market Surge. He has traded stocks using the Can Slim strategy since 1998. Mr. Morris began working for Investors Business Daily in April of 2002, and has been involved in all aspects of IBD's investing workshops and home study courses, including serving as national education speaker. Harold specializes in providing introductory, intermediate, and advanced investing seminars to individual and professional investors alike, and has been successful at teaching them how to spot emerging growth stocks that meet IBD's investing criteria. Harold, honored to have you today. Thanks for being here. It's all yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Mark. And like Mark said, my name is Harold Morris. Work here for IBD and been here for a long time, as you heard in the intro. But welcome to today's webinar, How to Succeed in the Stock Market with IBD. Uh, here's my here's me. I'm a senior product coach, IBD Live panelist, and most importantly, this is why we're here today, to help our members, help our subscribers get the most out of IBD, to get the most out of the subscription, to help you make money in the market. So that's what we're all here for. All right, but before we can get into things, we do have the disclaimer. I am not a licensed broker. No one else here is IBD is a licensed broker, so we cannot tell you what stocks to buy, and when to sell them. So, you can't call us or email us and ask those specific types of questions. We do help you out with pointing in the right direction with the different products that we have, but we cannot directly tell you what to buy and when to sell. All right, so what are we going to do today? We're going to first give a brief story of who we are, who is IBD. We're going to talk about the four pillars of our IBD methodology. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the different products that we have here at IBD, and I'm going to spend most of the time here with the three-step routine using the IBD digital product, and going to give you a little information about what kind of support do we have, and then what you need to do to get started today, and then time permitting, we'll have a Q&A. All right, so who is IBD? We have been around since 1984. We were founded by William J. O'Neill, the founder of IBD. So we're not some fly-by-night company. We've been around a long time. And then in 2021, we are acquired by Dow Jones. So we are a Dow Jones company, but we still operate as IBD. So basically, Dow Jones said when they acquired us, they said they're going to let IBD just be IBD. So very little has changed as far as what we do here at Investors Business Daily. All right. Now, as I mentioned at the top, that we do have well, I didn't mention it, but I'll talk about it now. We do have a fact based program that we use here to invest money in the market. So we have a lot of rules for buying, a lot of rules for selling, and the whole purpose of these rules is to, well, not eliminate your emotions in the market, but at least reduce the influence of your emotions on your trading. You don't want to be emotional about your buys and sells of stock. So the rules are based on how the market works, and it gives you a way of systematically putting the money to work in the market, and more importantly, systematically getting that money out of the market when it's time. So we have tools for that that'll help you get in the money market at the right time and get out of the market at the right time. Now, in a nutshell, this is what IBD is all about. So a lot of people know us for they call us momentum investing, but we pay a lot of attention to the fundamentals of the stock. So we start out with the fundamentals of a stock, looking at the stock's sales, earnings, profit margins, return on equity. So all the things that an accountant will look at. So all the numbers. Then we like to use technical analysis to get into the stock, to buy the stock right, and buy and this is technical analysis, just looking at the charts. Those of you who are familiar with IBD, there's chart patterns that we look at. There's actually seven of them, but there's three you're going to see more often than anything else. That's the double bottom, cup with handle, and the flat base. So those three chart patterns you're going to use, you're going to see more often than anything else. And then we use market timing. So you can do all the right things with the fundamental analysis, looking at the sales and earnings of the stock and all the fundamentals. You can do all the right things with your technical analysis, looking at the chart setup, what type of pattern it is, what the buy point is. But if you're not in the market at the right time and out of the market at the right time, fundamental analysis and technical analysis is not going to pay off as well as it should, So we are very big on market timing, and we have a very good market timing strategy that we use here at IBD. Something I've seen IBD do since 1998. I was a subscriber prior to working for IBD. I took out my first subscription in the summer of 1998 and then started working for the company in April of 2002. And I've seen this market timing strategy work over and over for the last 2 decades plus. All right, so okay, so we have the fundamental analysis, technical analysis, and market timing. So how do we execute these three things? So we have the four pillars of our IBD methodology. Starting with the fundamental analysis I mentioned a moment ago. We have a rating system here at IBD. One rating we have here at IBD is called a composite rating. The composite rating looks at several different things, looks at sales, earnings, profit margins, the industry group. So the composite rating, it is a rating that is weighted more towards the fundamentals of a stock. It's about 70% your fundamentals, 30% your technicals. So that's the first thing I'm looking at when it comes to doing my analysis on the stock. So fundamental analysis, that's where we start. And then timing the buys and your sells with technical analysis. That's looking at the chart. When it's time to buy the stock, we're looking at the chart pattern to try to determine where the buy point is, and more importantly, we use the chart to when it's time to sell. You're not looking at the fundamentals of a company when it's time to sell. You're only looking at the chart, and we have sell signals that we use here, very specific sell signals that we use here to identify time when it's time to get out of a stock and keep your losses small. That's very important, or to lock in gains. So technical analysis is very important when it comes time to sell. And then we want to keep you in phase with the market. Okay, we know that um, stocks will follow the trend of the market. We especially seen that in 2025. Well, the market topped in February of 2025. We sold off in February, March, going into April. We bottomed in April, and then the market took off. So when the market topped, started to sell off, stocks were selling off with it. When the market started to go up, the bottom April 7th was the actual bottom in the market. We started going up, stocks were going up with it. So one of the things with our market timing strategy, we will keep you in phase with the market. So what I hear at IBD on April 22nd, we had the follow through day. The follow through day is a signal to get into the market. We started selling stock in and in early February. The market started to sell off. By the time the market bottomed in late March, going into April, we were pretty much in cash because we were selling stocks before the market sold off. And we sold off around 20%. And then the market, we did to get the signal on April 22nd to get into the market. And this market is still looking strong. So it's been a very strong uptrend. The market shows no signs of quitting at the moment. And then the fourth pillar is staying in the game with risk management. Risk management is something that's not talked about very much. This is probably, well, one of the most important parts of investing in the market because you got to control risk. We have rules for that. So, for example, one of the ways we control risk is selling the stock if it goes down 7 to 8% below where you bought it. So, if we bought the stock at 100, it goes down to 93, then you sell it, no questions asked. Now, I know a lot of you are going to want, okay, and this has happened to everyone. Okay, you sold the stock and then it recovers and starts going back up. Well, if that's the case, then you can buy it back. But remember, every 20% loss started out at 5%, and then it went to 7, then to 10, 15, and so on. So risk management, part of risk management is keeping your losses as small as possible. That 7% sell rule I just mentioned a moment ago, that's your maximum loss. Many times, we are out of a stock if it's down 5%, 5%, sometimes even less if it's almost sometimes it's almost obvious that the stock is not going to work out. So risk management is an extremely important part of our methodology here at IBD. And then just as a brief overview of some of the products that we have here at IBD. Market Search, this is our premium product. This is more for your advanced type of investor or trader. Market Search, it is a charting platform, and you have to be the type of person who says, and I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to do my own screening. I'm going to determine when to buy the stock. I'm going to determine when to sell the stock. And so it's more for your more advanced, experienced investor or trader. And then we have the swing trader and also the leaderboards. I'm going to talk about these two at the same time. So both leaderboard and swing trader are managed by portfolio managers here at IBD. So in both products, when they go take a position in the stock, they're going to buy stock, they send out alerts saying, we're going to buy this stock at this price. Okay. And if the stock is working, then if it hits a profit target, they send out another alert saying they're gonna sell the stock. If it breaks down and doesn't work out at all, then they send out an alert that they're going to sell the stock there. So every step of the way, you get alerted about it. Now, the difference between the two subscriptions is swing trader is more for short-term trading. So they're looking to get in the stock, look for an 8 to 10% profit and get out. Whereas with leaderboard is more of your long-term investing. They're looking to find a fundamentally and technically strong stock and hold it as long as possible. So that's the difference between the two subscriptions here. And then we have the IBD Live. So IBD Live, it's a live trading program that we do every morning that the market is open. So we start about 10 minutes before the market opens, talk about the news of the day. And then once the market opens, we start bringing up charts showing you how we trade that stock. So there's always 4 traders here from IBD on IBD Live, and we just show you our approach to how we trade these stocks here. And then we have the IBD Digital. So I'm going to talk about this a lot more in depth a little bit later here. So IBD Digital, this is our basic product. This is where a lot of people start when it comes to the different products here at IBD. And then we have Market DM, which is I call it a hard-hitting newsletter. It's a newsletter that it comes out every morning. It gets emailed to you, and it's got stocks that are setting up, what the market is doing, stocks that aren't doing so well. So Market DM, very good a newsletter that gets emailed out to you daily. So a really good source of stock ideas with the Market DM newsletter. So IBD Digital, this is where I want to spend the bulk of our time here. So IBD Digital, um, this is where most people start out with IBD. So we have the IBD Digital product. One of the key features in IBD is an article called The Big Picture. This big picture article is where we give you details as to what's going on in the overall market. And you need to know what the market is doing because stocks follow the trend of the market, as I mentioned earlier. So the big picture article, very important article that's in IBD, something you need to read on a daily basis. In the big picture article, there's a little box called the market pulse. There's a little image of it here, the market pulse. So in the market pulse, we tell you what happened the previous day. We have the current outlook and our exposure level. So this is part of our market timing there. And then we have the IBD podcast where we have podcasts. Actually, we have one later on today, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern. These podcasts are also on YouTube and they're free to everyone. So this is part of the IBD. And then when it comes to looking for potential stocks to buy, we have different lists like the IBD 50. Okay, that's something that's a list that IBD is most known for. But there's a list called Stock Spotlight, which I tend to like a little bit better than the IBD 50. IBD 50, yeah, it's a great list, but I like that Stock Spotlight stock there, and that's part of the subscription. Then there's Stock of the Day, where our research department will say, okay, this is a stock that looks good. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a stock that you're going to buy today, but this is something that's looking pretty good here. And then on the homepage at investors.com, we have the stocks on the move. So this is an algorithm that runs throughout the market session, and it's identifying stocks that are moving up in price on high volume. So a lot of day traders like to use the stocks on the move, where you can find stocks that are making strong price moves on increasing volume. And then in the IBD subscription, there is a stock screener where you can input some of your own parameters and come up with stocks based on the parameters that you select. And then also you have the stock list. So once you go through the different lists, you need to put together a watch list. With the IBD digital product, you can create 5 different stock lists, and each of those lists can hold up to 50 stocks. And then once you look at the different lists, so let's say you're looking at the IBD 50 list and you see a stock that looks good. Well, you don't want to buy it just because it's on the IBD 50 or any other list. You want to run it through the stock checkup. So stock checkup is a very powerful tool. So you would enter the symbol in the stock checkup, and it'll give you a breakdown on the stock based on 30 fundamental and technical criteria. I know a lot of subscribers out there, everybody's getting information from a lot of different sources nowadays because of the internet. I know a lot of people like to use IBD as a last resort. So they get some stock information from some other source, but they want to run it through that stock checkup just to see what IBD has to say about it before they make a decision about whether they want to buy that stock or not. And then you always want to look at the stock chart. This is part of the technical analysis that I mentioned a moment ago. All right, so IBD Digital, I want to go through and walk you through a three-step process or three-step routine that you can efficiently use the IBD Digital product. And at the end of the session today, we do have an offer. And so you want to hang around for that offer so you can take what we're going to talk about right now and put it into action. So step one would be looking at what the market is doing. That's what that big picture article is all about. Because again, you need to know what the market is doing because stocks will follow the trend of the market. So once you have a good understanding as to what the overall market is doing, then you want to start to look for stocks. You want to use one of the stock lists. And I mentioned the IBD 50, the other list, the stock spotlight, uh, the sector leaders. So several different lists that are in IBD where you can find potential stocks to buy. And then once you find a stock from one of those lists, then you want to use that stock checkup to get a feel for what that stock is fundamentally and tactically. As I mentioned a moment ago, the stock checkup gives you a breakdown of the stock based on 30 different fundamental and technical data points here. So here's step one. So remember, step one is evaluating the market. So this is where we have the article called The Big Picture. The Big Picture is an article that's updated daily. It gets updated around 3:30 Pacific time or 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. So the Big Picture article is an article that gives you details as to what's going on in the overall market. And again, I'm gonna say this again. You need to know what the market is doing because with stocks will follow the trend of the market. So it's extremely important to know what that market is doing. So that's why this is step one, to get a good feel for what the market is doing. And that's what the big picture article is all about. You can see a little image here. It's on our website at investors.com under market trend. And then you just click on the big picture. And then this is that market pulse. So when I pull up the big picture article, this is typically the first thing I want to look at to see what's going on in the market. In particular, I like to look at the distribution days. The distribution days, this is the category that we use to identify a potential top in the market. And I say potential because it doesn't mean that the market is going to top out based on what you see in this category, but potentially it could. Now, a distribution day by definition is just a day when either the NASDAQ or the S&P 500, where either one of those indexes closes down in price and on higher volume when compared to the previous market day. So again, it's down in price when compared to the previous market day, and the volume is higher when compared to the previous market day. So that's your definition of a distribution day. So one way of thinking about a distribution day, it's a day of institutional selling. So it's a day when there tends to be a little bit of heavy selling in the overall market, and we track it in this category. And typically, when we get to about 5 or 6 distribution days, in a 25 trading day period, that's where we're tracking these distribution days, then that's a sign that the market that we might see a little bit of weakness in the market. So currently in IBD, we have 6 distribution days on both the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, and yet our outlook on the market, we are pretty much fully invested. So it's just not the distribution days that we look at to identify a market top. We'll also take into consideration what the leading stocks are doing. So the leading stocks like Hood and ALAB, what else? There's a bunch of stocks out there that are doing very well. CLS, they're doing very well. So a lot of your leading stocks are doing very well. So that's why we're pretty much staying fully invested. When I say fully invested, that's what this category here is all about. So the market exposure. So basically, what we're telling you here is that 80 to 100% of your portfolio should be invested in the market. Now, if the market starts to break down, then we start lowering the exposure level, telling you, okay, it's time to lock in some profits because the market's not looking so good. And if the market starts to sell off even further, we'll lower this. So back in February 10th of this year, we are fully invested. By the time we got to late February, early March, we were pretty much in cash because the market was selling off. It was doing so on heavy volume. Your leading stocks weren't doing so well. So that was a time when we were just saying, okay, let's just get out of the market. Things aren't looking so good. That's what the big picture article is all about. That was all detailed in the big picture article. And this article is archived. So you can go back to February and see what we were saying about the market then. And then you can go back into April, what we were saying about the market then when we went to the fall today on April 22nd. So you can go look at the big picture article on April 22nd, and you can see, okay, this is what IBD was saying about the market, that it's time to get in. So this big picture article, extremely important article here. Okay, so once you've done your market analysis, you have a pretty good understanding as to what's going on in the overall market. So here's you want to start to look for stocks. As I mentioned earlier, we have the different stock lists. The 3 primary lists that you want to look at are the IBD 50, the stock spotlight, and the sector leaders. Those are the 3 main lists that you want to do your research on. And then for other areas, you want to look for other stocks. You know, we do have the screen of the day. We have the stock screener where you can input your own parameters and search the market that way. And then that stocks on the move that I mentioned earlier. This is stocks on the move. So here's an image of the stocks on the move. And again, it's an algorithm that runs throughout the market session that identifies stocks that are moving up in price on strong volume. And last but not least, once you look at the different lists, you see stocks that you want to add to that list. That's where you can build a stock list. And again, you can create 5 different stock lists, and each of those lists can hold up to 50 stocks. All right, so finding stocks, that's step 2 of the 3-step routine. Step 3 is evaluate that stock. This is that stock checkup I mentioned a moment ago. So that stock checkup, it'll give you a breakdown on the stock based on 30 technical and fundamental data points here. I mentioned that stock, the composite rating here right at the top or at the beginning. So this composite rating, you can see it's right at the top of the stock checkup. This rating, what it does, it takes 5 different ratings and rolls them all into one rating. So it's a very comprehensive look at a stock. And then you see the other data points that are, this is kind of like under the current earnings. This is a breakdown of the earnings that are part of the composite rating. So this stock checkup, extremely important, extremely important tool here at IBD. Another thing that the stock checkup will do is once you enter the symbol, it'll show you the composite rating for the company. So our minimum on the composite rating is an 80. So let's suppose you enter a symbol from a stock and it has a poor composite rating. Say it's a 70, which is well below the minimum of 80. What the stock checkup will do, it will point you to stocks in the same industry that have better ratings. So the stock checkup, it works like a research tool. I like to call it a research assistant. So if I input a stock that has some poor ratings, it will point you to a stock that's got much better ratings than the stock that you initially put into the stock checkup. So very powerful tool with the stock checkup here. And then the chart. So once you done your market analysis, you went to the different lists like the IBD 50. You ran a stock through. the stock checkup just to make sure all the ratings and all the other fundamentals are in check. And then you always need to consult a stock chart because you got to spot the optimal buy point. One of the things we do with the different stock lists is we'll tell you what that buy point is. So you look at the information, you look at the stock chart, it'll tell you what the buy points. You don't necessarily have to do the analysis on your own. It helps to understand how we arrive at these buy points, but that's one of the things we do is help you out as far as pointing you into the right direction as to what the stock is and what the buy point is for that particular stock. All right, so that's a three-step process or three-step routine that you can use with the IBD digital subscription. So the three steps are the evaluating the market. You need to know what the market is doing. Once you know what the market is doing, then you want to look for stocks using the different IBD lists, like the IBD 50. And then once you find the stock from one of the lists, you want to run it through the stock checkup just to check out the stock, see what the details are, and then you want to look at the chart before you make a decision as to whether you want to buy the stock or not. And then here at IBD, we have a lot of ways to keep you informed, keep you educated. We have webinars that we do on a regular basis. One of the webinars I mentioned earlier is a IBD podcast, which takes place every Wednesday at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Eastern time. I forget who the guest is going to be, but you can always find out. You can just go to investors.com and see who the guest is going to be for the IBD podcast. And then we have live events. Now, these are not in person, but we do live events. It's all online nowadays. We have an event coming up on the 18th, which is going to be specifically for the swing trader product, and then we have another live event on Saturday. I believe that date is September 20th, and it's a paid event, but you can go to investors.com and get some more details as to what the events are. And then we have the IBD University where we have a lot of articles. So I mentioned the buy rules. What are the rules that we use for buying a stock? That's in the IBD University. What are the rules for selling a stock? That's also in the IBD. So there's a ton of information in the IBD University. And then the Market DM. This is a newsletter that I mentioned earlier. It gets emailed out to you. It's got a lot of good information in that IBD in this Market DM newsletter. So it comes out something I look at daily. It's got a lot of good stock information, stock ideas, stocks near buy points, stocks that aren't doing so well. Maybe you own a stock that's not doing so well, and it shows up in the Market DM. Well, you might be a little tip that okay, the stock is not looking so well. The author of the articles gave you more specifics about that stock there. All right, then. But I want to we'll get to that. I want to show you what the offer is. So the offer for the IBD Digital. So remember the three-step routine I mentioned a moment ago, we talked about earlier. Well, if you want to use that routine, we have a promotion going where you can get the IBD Digital 6 weeks for $15. Here's a normal price at $39.95, but the special we've got going today, it's 6 weeks for $15 of the IBD Digital. So you can take that three-step routine, you can get started today with this routine. And then if you like the Market DM newsletter, again, it's a newsletter that gets emailed to you. $20 a year, that's very cheap. All it takes is one trade and it's more than it's going to pay for the IBD Digital, excuse me, of your Market DM and other products. All right, so questions. Any questions out there? So, Mark, did you see any questions that come through?
Oh, yeah. All right, Harold, thank you so much. Question here was, how do you balance attention to market headlines versus technical analysis and chart patterns in making investment decisions?
Yeah. So our approach here at IBD is we look at what the market is doing and then we act accordingly. So any news out there, it's going to be reflected in the indexes. So we have a Fed decision coming up. I think it's next week about the interest rates. Well, that's built into the chart. There's other things, other news or news related events. So whatever happens, I tend not to look at the news because I know if it's going to negatively affect the market, it's going to show up on the NASDAQ and or the S&P 500. Or if it's positive for the news, we've seen that this year. It was a thought that, okay, these tariffs are really going to hit the market. That's what the market sold off earlier this year. But then it appeared that, okay, tariffs is not going to be so bad after all. So we look at what the market is doing and not what the news is, what's on the news. Because how do you quantify the news? Well, you can't. So that's why we look at what the market is doing and then we act accordingly.
All right, thank you so much. Another question, they're saying you traded the Can Slim strategy for a while since I believe 1998. How has your approach evolved over the years, especially in different market cycles?
It's basically the same since I started. Now it has evolved because the market has changed a little bit, and some of our rules have changed a little bit. But in a nutshell, our approach here is pretty much the same. My approach since 1998, it's still the same. I'm still looking at charts. I'm still using the buy points. I'm still executing the sell rules that we have. You know, I mentioned the sell rule. If the stock goes down 7 to 8% below your buy point, you should sell it. I typically don't wait for 7 to 8%. I'll be selling somewhere around 5%. I know I haven't done my numbers in a while, but I was on average around 5%. So rather than waiting, that's one of the things that have evolved for my trading is shortening up. I'm not going to wait for 7%. If it appears that the stock is selling off, it's not going to work. I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to get out. Another thing I've done when it comes to taking profits, I tend to sell in the strength. Okay, so if the stock goes up 20%, we have a rule here. The stock goes up 20% from where you bought it, then you should sell it. Well, I don't sell the entire position. I want to sell part of that position. Okay, because you never know. Many times these stocks will hit that 20% mark, and that 20% is based on research. It's not some random number we pick. Typically, our research has shown, and we have research going back into the late 1800s, how these stocks will break out, get around 20% profit, and they tend to kind of go sideways. And then some of them will take off and continue to uptrend. Some of them will just lose that momentum and they just run out of gas. So when it gets to 20%, I tend to sell part of that position and to see what happens. If it keeps going, great. I have some money working for me. If it starts to break down, then I will sell the remaining. So uh, my rules have evolved a little bit, but not much.
All right, Harold, thank you so much for your insights today. That puts us right at time. We appreciate it. Let's do it again sometime soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone in attendance. You're watching Money Show's Virtual Expo, Oil, Gas, and Renewables Boot Camp. We were speaking here with Harold Morris of Investors Business Daily. So thank you for attending this event. Be sure to check out moneyshow.com's calendar of events to find future virtual events and face-to-face conferences. We'll be heading up to Toronto tomorrow. So again, thanks for being here. We'll be back with you shortly.